I'm reading this looking for patterns and what makes sense in light of the knowledge that I have. So if there's anything in this reading that doesn't resonate with you, feel free to discard that. You know, I can only read what I see, but that doesn't mean that what I see is truth or reality for you. So if there's any parts that you feel are wrong or incorrect, you can just disregard those. The second thing I want to say is that we're dealing with Chiron and your core wound, which is wounding before birth. And this is the most unconscious wounding that we have, and therefore, because it's the most unconscious, a lot of times it's the most difficult for us to see operating, the manifestations of it operating in our lives. But it's the most obvious to others. Like, they can see this wounding in us, but we can't see it. So that's another thing I wanted to mention before I get started. So I want to start in your reading with your astrology chart, and I want to focus on your Mars. In our human design chart, Mars is our core wound. And because of that, I want to look at your Mars in your chart. It's retrograde. And Mars in our chart represents our will, the development of our will. And because you have it retrograde, that can indicate that you're somebody who has a passive will. And if you look at your human design chart, I believe that you have the will center undefined, is what I remember. So that would make sense why your will is more passive. You don't have constant access to that willpower energy. So when you look at this Mars, what it shows me is that personally, that your will is being developed in this lifetime through learning how to produce mastery or integrity in your career or public role, which is the Capricorn part. Excuse me, because Mars is in Capricorn. And then that'll be manifesting in the area of your life, this 7th house area, which represents your relationships, and that starts first and foremost with yourself. The ability to relate to others and empathize with others always starts with, just how much capacity we have to relate to and love ourselves and empathize with our own self. So what I would say about your Mars here is that in this lifetime you're learning how to, develop that loving, empathic, connected relationship to yourself, and in doing that, it's going to help you to be able to come to an understanding of who you really are, and what lights you up, what you're here to do, and then you're going to take that information and that knowledge and use it to have integrity within your career or public role, meaning that you're going to find a way to let your natural gifts, your natural talents, your natural interests be a part of either your career or your public role. And that's how your will is being developed in that area. And in your human design chart, you have an undefined head and Ajna. So with that, you'd be taking on other people's questions and looking for answers to those questions. I don't know if you've started your experiment, or if at this point in time you're just studying human design and not really applying it. But if you are using your authority, which is emotional. So if you're leaning into your emotions and riding the wave and, getting clarity over time emotionally about what's correct for you or not in regards to what questions you allow to come into your mind, and then the questions come in, and then you can look for the answers, but that needs to be done correctly. So it has to be filtered through your authority, through waiting out your emotional wave and gaining clarity about which questions are correct for you to try to answer or not. And to think about, if you do this, it should help heal your wounding around your relationship to yourself that I just talked about with Mars in the 7th, and how that relationship impacts your ability for mastery, which is your gate 16 coming off the throat here, the throat center on the left. You can find the gate 16, that's about mastery, and that is your design Chiron gate. That's why I'm bringing it up, because this is your Chiron wounding. It's around that mastery, and that ties into your Mars placement that I just talked about, with developing your will so that you can find mastery or integrity between what your true interests are and who you really are, and your career or public role. So all this stuff's connected, your Mars wounding and your Chiron. Okay, and then so going back to your chart, if you look at your natal Chiron in your astrology chart, it's in Gemini in the 12th house. And this to me has a specific meaning. So Gemini is about our perceptions, how we perceive reality, and then the 12th house is about experiences within one's awareness that exist outside the realm of what's considered normal, or it's basically experiences outside the ego. That's how people normally operate, is within the egoic mind structure. So by allowing and embracing any events that you've had or that have caused an ego death to happen for you, any changes in the way that you perceive reality, then that Chiron that you have in the 12th, and it's also conjunct your sun, which is representative of one's ego or identity, which that's a double signature right here. You have the wounding in the perception caused by some type of ego death, some type of experience where your perception of reality was fundamentally altered, and it's conjunct your sun, which is representative of your ego itself. So there's wounding around your ego, and I think it's representative of that ego death, or that experience of having perceived reality of what outside of what's considered normal. So by finding ways to integrate those type of experiences, those types of ego deaths, or radical shifts in your perception of reality, you can begin allowing and embracing them, and in that way you can begin transmuting the wounding and healing it. And I think that in doing that and finding a way to integrate those experiences, and then therefore embracing them, it's going to help you with your Mars and your core wound, your pre-birth wounding, so that you can begin to manifest or bring your dreams into form, because the throat center is where the gate 16 is at, which is about mastery, and the throat center is about manifestation. And the shadow of that gate, of gate 16, is it's about fantasizing about what you could do or become. You know, you have this dream about, oh, you know, I could be this or I could do that. But at the shadow level, it's just fantasizing about it. It's like, you know, the possibility is there, but there's no action taken on it. Or there's still fear around, you know, who you really are and who you're becoming because of that change of perception, the change of, you know, how you perceive reality. So if we go back to where am I at? We go back to your human design chart. You have this 35 here, which is directly across from the 16 on the other side of the throat, and that's your personality Chiron. You know, so you have your design Chiron in the gate 16 and your personality Chiron in the gate 35. So this wounding, the 35, might be a little more conscious because it's on the personality side. But the shadow of that gate, and I'm talking about shadows because we're talking about Chiron and, you know, our deepest wounding. So the shadow of the gate 35 is, it's hunger. So it's this insatiable hunger that comes when we have this gaping hole inside of us, you know, left by trauma, abuse, neglect, that we can never seem to fill. It's, you know, it's just like this insatiable hunger, and we don't realize a lot of times that hunger is not for food, it's not for TV shows or, you know, whatever addictions that we develop to try to fill that hunger. It's for love. And because we never received that as a kid, then, you know, that causes this big wound, this big gaping hole. And the only way to fill that hole and to put an end to that hunger is self-love. So again, this is all tying back to your astrology chart with Mars in the 7th and learning how to develop that intimate, you know, loving relationship and connection to self, because everything begins with the self. If you're not right with the self, you're not going to be right in any other area of your life. It's just impossible. So you know, that seems like it's becoming a common link, you know, the best remedy for a lot of the wounding that you have. Your core wound, your Mars wound, and your Chiron wound is just that, you know, that learning how to truly love yourself and connect to yourself for the first time. And then when you do that, you know, it's going to help you to know who you are, so you can have integrity in your career or public role. And I think I'm trying to see how this might tie into with Chiron and Gemini in the 12th, with the perceptions piece. You know, I'm not sure about that. I don't want to make up any stories, but I'm sure that you know what that means. And then the last thing I want to say is, you know, that should help in your manifestation. So now, instead of, you know, just fantasizing or, you know, thinking about what you could one day become or do in this world, you can actually do it, because you have, you know, you've filled your own heart with your own love, and that allows you to do anything. You know, you're no longer hungry, you're no longer addicted, you're no longer desperate, confused, hurt, wounded. And once that piece is in place, you're basically unstoppable. You can manifest anything you want. And I'm talking about manifestation because your 2 Chiron gates again are in the throat, which is the center for manifestation. In human design, they say that all the energy within a chart is trying to get to the throat. The energy from the head is getting down to the throat, and everything from the bottom up is going up into the throat because we want to. That's what life is about. Life is about living life. It's not about thinking about life or daydream about life or fantasizing. It's about living life, and that's what we want. That's the end goal. Okay, there was one last piece that I wanted to mention that I forgot. So I think this will be a good tie-in to Chiron and Gemini with the perceptions. Your core wound, which is your design Mars, is in gate 11, which deals with how we process information. It's in the Ajna center. That's how we process information. So how we process information is obviously going to affect how we perceive reality. And the shadow of gate 11 is blocking the abstract. It's blocking any type of images, memories, associations coming up from the subconscious mind into conscious awareness. And the reason that's a shadow is because this is an abstract channel. So the change that you've had in perception that altered your sense of reality could be from trying to utilize a more left brain, logical, masculine approach, mental approach to navigate reality, to all of a sudden, maybe something happened where, maybe it was via your illness that you finally had to start dealing with all of that stuff that's been buried, that's causing illness in your body, and all the repressed emotions, all the, anything that deals with the abstract mind. So past or present life memories, past or present life feelings and associations. And I think that makes sense, that you have this core wound, this pre-birth wounding in your ajna. It's in gate 11, how we process information, and then in your astrology chart, your Chiron is in Gemini in the 12th, so it's about how we perceive reality. So I think that's the tie-in there. And then I want to try to do a quick summary. So the wounding itself has to do with, there are some fundamental shift or change in how you perceive reality. And looking at your charts, I'm thinking that would be from going to, a more logical, ego-based approach to probably a more abstract or, body, mind, emotions approach. And then that in turn, that wounding is going to be affecting your ability to really know who you are. If we don't perceive ourselves from, the totality of our being, which is our mind, body, and emotions, then we can't really know ourselves. So, if we don't know ourselves, how can we develop a connection to ourselves and love for ourselves? And then that ties into to the Mars placement in the 7th. And then, if we don't have that peace, if we don't know and love ourselves, how can we manifest anything? How can we have integrity between who we are and what we do in the world, which is the Mars and Capricorn piece? Or how can we gain mastery over, the work that we're going to do in this life? If we don't even know ourselves, it's impossible to gain mastery, because we are, our perceptions are I can't think of the right wording, but they're not holistic. They're only left brain oriented. They're only logical oriented. And as people, we're more than just logic. We're our memories, we're our emotions. So as a summary, that's what I'd say. That would be the connections that I'd make and how all the pieces fit together. Let me see if there's anything else I want to say. Yeah, I think that's a good summary and a good reading. So hopefully this helped you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I've already been through a similar journey, not the same, but a similar journey. So, I know all the things that go on with this journey and somewhat how to navigate it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay, that's all I have for now. Take care. Bye.